All right, dear participants, as it's getting colder and darker outside, I hope we are having a good time in this warm and friendly atmosphere. And next, our guest is Mr. Oleg Derevyanko, co-founder and chairman of the board of directors of international cybersecurity company ISSP. Please welcome.
Good afternoon. Dobro вечера. So now we come into the private sector. So there were a lot of talks about private sector today, which is great. So I'll would like to give a little overview of how private sector can actually contribute, or how we are contributing to the joint goal and common task of making this cyberspace a little bit more secure and safe. So just a little background, for those who don't know us, we are a cybersecurity company that have been around for more than 12 years, and we're pretty much project-based company. We're working on project basis, and it kind of happened that way that by the time the Russia invaded the eastern Ukraine and occupied Crimea, we already had a team of experts in the lab that was capable to do some quite advanced research in forensics investigations and research of cyber attacks. So we were called, and we became a first responder and to an investigator of many of the major attacks that took place in Ukraine back then. So, and I would like just to remind you about this waves of attacks that took place. So, of course, it's not all of them, but just as an illustration of these classics nowadays. So the first wave of 2000 started in 2014 with election attacks, and of course this next wave of attacks that took place in 2015, and the next wave in 2016. Then again, the 2017 with the famous NotPetya, and in the last 2 years, 3 years, there was only increase in the number of attacks on critical infrastructure. So it's always published in global media, and that helped us a lot to share awareness and to spread the word about Ukraine as a test bed for cyber war. Not only the target, of course, Ukraine is also the target. And this, there were wide articles, other articles, the Sand War book, if you haven't read it, quite interesting. I also have this Ukrainian, Ukrainian translation for Ukrainian audience українською, якщо хтось не бачив, є переклад українською мовою.
If someone hasn't seen, there is a translation of this book into Ukrainian, which speaks about the activity of this group Sandworm. So there is a book in Ukrainian, actually.
That we conducted and helped the author also to write this book. Of course, we couldn't share everything, but what we could share was, more or less enough to kind of spread the word and create the awareness. We also do quite often, we do workshops at different places. But one was at MIT. There was other places and other organizations that we cooperate with doing the workshops and research. Most of them are pretty technical, so we're basically going into deep dive of the TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, and the sequence of events within the cyber attacks. And this practice actually resulted in a framework that we have developed, and this is basically the main topic of my speech today, is to present to you this framework. So, of course, there are many frameworks available. That may seem just as another framework, but this is the result of our kind of hands-on and heavy-duty practice here. So we do believe that, of course, there are compliance measures in place. The different aspects of cybersecurity and cyber protection that are relevant in order to prevent cybercrime in the first place. many of them are also very relevant for the investigations as well. And from these 6 pillars that you see here, the cyber strategy and roadmap, the need to develop skills and to introduce standards, the cybersecurity exercises as a regular practice that need to be present both on the national and organizational levels, threat intelligence sharing mechanisms, something that the government of Ukraine today puts a huge emphasis on, and we are very happy that nowadays we see much better willingness and proactiveness from government of Ukraine to cooperate with the private sector and to engage the private sector in developing the threat intel sharing mechanisms across the industries and for the whole kind of national cybersecurity. The cybersecurity incident preparedness diagnostics and the cybersecurity maturity model are 2 interdependent components. All of them are interdependent, of course, but I would like specifically to focus on the incident preparedness diagnostics, and as we call them, the incident preparedness or incident preparedness assessment. And the idea here is that very often what we see, even when we talk about the mature organizations, we only see kind of sporadic attempts to do the assessments and to understand the cybersecurity posture of any given infrastructure. And some companies would do penetration testing. Some companies would do some other tools would do, for example, compliance audits and so on. But we know very well that compliance does not mean security, and vice versa. And from these 6 elements of 360 holistic approach to assessment, I would like to specifically focus today on compromise assessment. And the reason why is that because even today, when we talk with some of the companies from the industry, the term compromise assessment is not very often kind of recognized immediately, just like you would recognize penetration testing, for example. And the reason why is that there is still a lack of resources and lack of skills and lack of technologies how you could do the compromise assessment, which essentially, basically, is a proactive forensic investigation. So, because if we look at just a couple of examples, like this one, the slide from one of the investigations we did back in 2015, and this slide is just this 14 minutes when the adversaries took the domain controller in the media company. It's the Black Energy attack, but as you know, or for those who don't know, the Black Energy who was conducted in December against the power grids in Western Ukraine, in October, the same technique, just exactly the same, were used against media companies and culminated at the day of the local elections in Ukraine. But why is it important? It's important because it was part of this large 6 months attack from intrusion to the culmination phase. And at the beginning, if you would go to VirusTotal and you would send a sample, most of the antiviruses would not recognize it as malware. Like several days later, all of them were recognized. And also, even more importantly, that the techniques that the adversaries use today in most of the occasions would look pretty much like this. I mean, the regular protection tools would look for the weapon. They would look for the adversary, whereas the delivery method happens over a long period of time. And for example, in this case, there were around 15 machines were infected, and adversaries would deliver every day a piece of malware to these 15 different PCs, like 28 kilobytes on one day, 300 on another day, 200 on another day. And of course, I mean, all of them would bypass easily the real-time protection tools, because they're not looking for this, pieces of Lego. They're looking for the final toy. So, as a result, we know today that the attackers are resident inside, from 6 months to sometimes even years. I remember recently was a case In the US, when they discovered an adversary is present in one of the telecom companies for 6 years. So basically, as we know, the criminals, if it's not a state actor attack, even with a state actor attack, when criminals or proxies of a state actor attack, when they get access to the infrastructure, they would like to preserve the presence within. And they would, if they're just pure criminals driven by economic interests, by financial interests, they would wait for a client if they're not commissioned in the first place, right? They would go to darknet and other means of selling the access to the infrastructure to those who would pay more, if they're not commissioned in the first place. So they're inside for many, many years, but basically the capability of organizations, even the large organizations, to detect those attacks are very limited, let alone the millions of SMEs that actually even just don't have access and can afford to buy the service of advanced compromise assessment. So what's the solution then? So then the only way to go out of this kind of and to resolve this issue is to look for new technologies. That's what we actually did, and we started to gradually automate our manual first and then semi-manual practice of compromise assessment / forensics into a technology, because we believe that where we should arrive in some time, we should arrive at the same approach that we use for the physical health. We need to use the same approach for the health of our machines and systems. And the idea, if we talk about critical infrastructure or mature organizations, most of them are actually like, pretty old people, right? So they would need to do they'll have a lot of legacy systems inside, so they really need to do the health checkups, not even annually, but they would need to do the health checkups like quarterly. And again, so if all the patterns, like Ukrainian practice, and not only Ukrainian practice, showed that after the intrusion, in order not to be detected by the security means in place, especially real-time security, the adversaries, they stay silent, they do lateral movement, they do stealthy movements, they try to put sleeper agents inside, and they would try to do internal reconnaissance by deploying regular IT instruments. They would not deploy malware inside, and they would propagate within the infrastructure in a way that they're not detected. That's why, and that's why it takes longer than compared to if they would, go inside and launch their malware immediately. So that means that we can actually chase them there, right? But chasing, and that's why the compromise assessment is important, because if something happened, let's say today, and it does not recognize as a malicious behavior, this malicious event, then a week later something else may happen, and then a week later something else will happen, and then 2 weeks later something else will happen. And if you would look at sequence of the 3, 4, 5, sometimes even more events, then you would start to recognize this as a malicious. Just like in the real world, in the regular security, if someone, goes along the street, look at the camera at certain moment of time, that's okay, I'm looking at the camera. But if this person start to come, there, look at this camera over and over again over the same period of some period of time, he's doing you start recognizing something wrong in this behavior. So person kind of doing some recon or whatever. So exactly the same. So the idea is to actually move and to find a solution where companies of all sizes and organizations of all sizes would be able to do this cyber health checkups regularly. By saying cyber health checkups, I mean in the technical terms that would be compromise assessments. In the technical terms, these compromise assessments would mean proactive forensics investigations. Why? To answer these just 4 questions. Of course, there are many different technologies that could be used, and still you can use some, practice of manual or semi-manual investigation or compromise assessment. We use a specific technology which actually allows to do it in an automated way. If you're interested, I will, not to make it an advertisement here, I can tell you more about it during the breaks. But the idea is that the technology actually cuts the time and resources needed for compromise assessment by 70%. So what you do is that it's an agentless solution. It goes into the infrastructure, collects the artifacts, as we know them, hashes them. That's a really important thing to preserve the chain of custody. Each artifact is hashed, and then everything is encrypted, then uploaded to the analytics engine where it's analyzed, and we can produce on small to average size infrastructure. The report can be produced within 48 hours. For the larger infrastructure, let's say thousands of computers, it may take weeks, but still it's not months or 2 months or 3 months when the results that you would receive would be obsolete. That's really relevant for prevention and for chasing and hunting for the adversaries, but it's also very relevant when the investigation is needed. Why? Because you basically can narrow your search very, very quickly to those several machines that you can do real forensics on and discovering and analyzing the images of memory and so on and so forth. But you would not do this on thousands of machines, obviously, right? So by doing this, we're actually solving these 3 problems, the core problems that companies, many companies, even large companies, very often do not understand how to identify weaknesses. The service provider don't have access to technologies, and conducting compromise assessment is really time-consuming and expensive. So all these problems are solved by this approach. So, yeah, coming back to this holistic model. So once compromise assessment is executed, then of course all other measures are also very, very important and necessary, and we really try to promote this idea of holistic approach to assessments when we need to assess what happened before, how vulnerable you can potentially be, then to do the self-assessment and to kind of measure your cybersecurity maturity. We have a lot of interactions now with the SSCIP service and other organizations, and we really finally have in our governmental institutions people with whom we really can speak the same language. That's really important, and that was even not the case several years ago. So that's really important. So we we understand. I mean, in this interaction, sometimes these discussions are very, it's like productive discussions. But the idea is really to find the way how to bring the private sector and the government working together and unlocking this potential and the power of people and computers thinking together in approaching and this very, very difficult challenges and that we face in terms of cybercrime and ever-evolving cyber threats. So to sum up, I really would like to kind of show one more kind of framework that we believe is essential, and this is about how we can move, assuming that we're already kind of good at our cybersecurity, and for those who are already very good at their cybersecurity, what cybersecurity capabilities. The question would be, okay, what's next? How we can step up even further, both organizationally and as an industry or the sector or the whole country. And here the idea is that, that we need to gradually move from organizational level to sectorial and national level to collaborative efforts. From retrospective, we also need to apply the prospective approach, and from the regular traditional defense, moving to offensive defense where it's appropriate. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We know that prevention, intrusion is a kind of negative goal. Yeah, we need to prove that there's, at any given moment of time, you know about every possible way the adversary can get in. So you need to prove that somebody does not know what is your potential vulnerability and does not have means to exploit these vulnerabilities. So which means that you need to prove that something does not exist, which is mathematically impossible. Right? It's a negative It's a negative goal. So, but the typical paradigm that adversaries use, that we should know all the ways how they can get in and protect against all of them, whereas the adversary just need to know one to get in. We can actually use the same paradigm for the security purposes and think like this, like, okay, think basically like a hacker, thinking that, okay, so you are in, and you probably should behave in a way that you don't do any mistake, but we can chase for just one to catch you. And that's always possible if you do it right. Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Very informative and a well-articulated presentation. So maybe we have questions for our speaker. No questions? It was
Thank you.
perfectly
Thank you,
done. Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
For better or for good, no questions. Everything's clear so far. Our next speaker will be the co-founder and CEO of the International Cyber Academy in Ukraine, Valery Tsupa. Please welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Valery Tsupa. I represent International Cyber Academy. And in my life history, I worked in the Ministry of Interior of Ukraine, and I better understand what's need government institution on cybersecurity. Тому поговоримо сьогодні про публічно-приватне.
So we'll talk about PPP, public-private partnership in counteracting cybercrime and certain competencies that should be used as an instrument to strengthen capability to counteract cybercrime. Thank you very much indeed to the Office of General Prosecutor's Office for such important initiative, because we need not only to learn technological component, but also to increase the level of competency and skills to be more efficient. First of all, I'd like to note, so I will handle this pointer. We understand that cyber criminals, cybercrime works beyond geography, legal jurisdiction. It uses new edge-cutting technologies. And their tempos outspeed the tempos of preparation of training of IT specialists in this field. We understand there are certain limitations in inter-agency, interstate, in private-public partnership, which is reducing the efficiency of investigation. And we feel that there is a need in PPP to fight cybercrime and to strengthen cybersecurity. We are ready to such cooperation to strengthen the competency of personnel and to strengthen the capacity of state institutions to fight cybercrime. From the point of view, our international project, Cyber Academy, this is innovative medium that we built with our partners, oriented both to academic, corporate, and also public institutions. International Cyber Academy unites experts that are oriented and specialized in knowledges that are mostly needed by cyber market presently. Our specialists been involved in counteracting and investigation of hot pizza, black energy, and also have experience in implementation projects and knowledge that we have here in Ukraine. Also, our experts has an experience of implementation of projects with this both international, EUM, USAID, US Embassy, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia, and we are oriented to such trends like implementation of cyber hygiene as creation of special certified courses like the investigation of frauds with cryptocurrencies. We are certified academic partner of EC Council, and we propose these courses as well. Lastly, our experts are involved in the elaboration and a company of TTX tabletop exercises to create tangible scenarios to better interaction between, let's say, between planning and response to emergencies, including cyber incidents. Also, we participate in the development of CVOC or CyBOC. This instrument been or this package of knowledge being mentioned today. Our forum started this project online. There is a few packages of this knowledge. This is crime investigation body knowledge, which is used already by experts and been created by experts in order to, how to say, to consolidate to one standard of investigation, but it's later. Okay. Quite interesting research that has been done within the framework of CID's cyber security of critical infrastructure, where we learned by polling different representatives, and this questioning was done amongst state sector representatives of filling gaps in knowledge and in potential domains with the evaluation of these experts. All these white spots or gaps that they need to fill in their relevant knowledge. If you will pay attention to this research survey, so digital criminalistics, cyber investigation, and in such domains like cyber defense and cyber intelligence, also the fundamentals of cyber security, including cyber hygiene. So learning such analysis, such assessments, we ran to knowledge that what type of training courses should be done for state sector. And also we are talking about these noted gaps by state civil service. That is a priority to fill in. So, an interesting element of the structure of arrangement and functioning of cyber security response to cybercrime. This is CIS. This is a person who is responsible for the security in organization and having been in contact with the representatives of our central bodies of administrative power and our CDTO, the digital deputies of the minister in Ministry of Digitalization that are responsible for digitalization that was Vice Prime Minister mentioned today in his speech. But unfortunately for the time, we don't have CISO function, is missing. And this is the person which would contract with CDTO and other CISO in order to coordinate cybersecurity in the organization. So we are ready to create certain programs in case if such a function, a person would emerge in our institutions. We are in favor to jointly train such people to fulfill their relevant tasks in more efficient way. We pass to CVOC. As we noted, this is a package of knowledge. It is cybercrime investigation body of knowledge, actually. During the creation of CyBOC, we included leading experts from many countries, those who were supervising and administering the knowledge, methods, and views necessary for investigation of cybercrimes, including the system of resource management and human resource management. The investigation of cybercrimes, in fact, is a certain standard where we have to interact with the experts and representatives of state bodies that are located in different countries, counteracting cybercrime for better communication at the international and interagency level. CyBOC is having certain targets. These are popularization and advancement of global health thought, to consistent approach to investigation of cybercrime, positioning of systemized practices to define the volume of investigation of cybercrime, demonstration of practices in investigation of cybercrimes, provision of structural instruction as to use cyborg as a for investigators for planning, conduction, and review of investigation of cybercrimes, demonstration of organization, individual skills and knowledge necessary for investigation of cybercrimes. Official training cyborg provides knowledge, skills, and methodology to investigate cyber as identification, response, and investigation of cybercrime that are stipulated from the offices of legal enforcement bodies. CIKF that Sitosha mentioned, this instrument and this forum we can use in order to disseminate this knowledge around. Except official training cyborg, we can provide expert topics for private and state sectors. The main target, this is to cover all the organization, team management framework, execution framework, general management framework, and risk management to support activities. In our main courses, we admit such a course as fundamental trainings. They are showing the element of correlation for correct in the process of investigation of cybercrime, like scope of crime, cybercrime artifact, type of cybercrime, method of analysis, source of evidence, method of collection, information sharing, and understanding each element we can work with these crimes that are necessary for investigation. The target of the training is to understand these phenomena that are necessary in process of investigation of cybercrime, to fill the gaps, to execute the instructions, to modernize the ability to investigate of cybercrimes of organization, to understand and understand the correct way of cooperation of legal enforcement body and suffer it. Also to modernize the current process. In terms of training of staff and heads, the structure of management of cyber crime investigation shows elements necessary for top management to understand how the organization should be on investigating cybercrime. And learning every area, we can understand what type of organization we should have fighting cybercrime. So the education target is to understand how top managers should form the team, to understand the subordination and how to define the goal and meaning to fight cybercrime in organization, to consider impact of cybercrime as a risk for organization, and to understand the gist of strong organization to fight cybercrime. A framework of investigation of cybercrime shows 5 elements necessary to heads to create in the relevant organization the structure for management. The target is to understand the perspective of management, to manage investigation team, risk team, response team, CIRT, on CIRT. to understand the methods of management, how to arrange interaction between the team, CIRT, management team, and management and risk management team. So, such a number of approaches would permit us to create those standards that are convenient to work with to all the representatives of different bodies that work in cybercrime investigation area within the framework of one country and in between interstate area. So many represent many forums and meetings. They admit that we don't have Europol single mechanism in order to interact quite quick. The crime is so quick that without interagency interaction, interstate interaction, and having no interaction, we will not be efficient in this investigation of these cases. So CyBOK was created in order to have that interaction in place. As CyBOK partners, we are ready to implement and to modernize, to retrofit this work with the legal enforcement bodies. Our academy is also an academic partner of AC Council. This is American organization for certification of experts in security area. EC Council, probably you all well know, but I will tell a few words, that this is a leading certification body for electronic business and is a creator of many certified courses like Certified Ethical Hacker, Computer Hacking Forensics Investigator, CHFI, and they certified more than 80,000 individuals in more than 30,000 experts in the US Army, FBI, Microsoft, IBM, UN nations. So certificates of this council are admitted, recognized around the world, and been adopted from different state facility organizations, including federal US government, Agency for National Security of the United States Committee, CNSS, etc. So we strengthen our state bodies in order to train the specialists in cyber security. Also, it's interesting that this academic curriculum may cover the needs in training of specialized higher educational establishments where we can use academic prices, academic conditions that are different from other. Another important element of training is cyber hygiene. We mentioned a lot about it today. We do this training already for a couple of years. We have project implemented with the support with the EU consultative mission, US Embassy. We used the cyber hygiene of platform created by Estonian experts that had been counteracting in 2007 against cyber attacks when the state ceased to function properly. And the team who fought with this powerful attack, he participated in creation of this product, a cyber hygiene at the Cybex platform. What is interesting about? It's an interactive instrument. You have access and you can work during the year. This is a number of Q&A, which forms a risk evaluation system, personal, individual, group, and representative organizations that we train as a methodologist. He monitors the cyber resilience process of its relevant staff, and he monitors how the competency is increased and how the matrix, this big spot, which is going to red zone, then goes to green zone. So the system evaluates the correct responses and the knowledge of staff and that learners. So we do recommend this platform, and we are ready at this basis to perform trainings for representatives of legal enforcement bodies and other state agencies. Here we have certain elements and challenges that we know how to. We need to think about motivation of the learners, work with these mentors, how to make this process resilient. But all these elements are done, so we are ready to train these experts to strengthen cyber hygiene. We had interesting courses of investigation of frauds, crypto frauds. This is an introduction into blockchain, learning of what is cryptocurrencies are, what necessary knowledge should be to work with these cryptos. And we use Bit4 Crystal platform, which is one of the recommended for analytics on frauds by national police for fraud crimes. 3-5 days course, but you can get important skills how to analyze, evaluate frauds in cryptocurrencies. One of the last instruments that we think is quite important. These are the instance data top exercise. This is headquarters command drills, where the members of the team they are gathered in a separate premises. For instance, against a planned cyber attack to a number of state organizations and their response to a specific cyber attack. The facilitator leads these guys through one of the scenarios of cyber attack, and they search for the best option for resolution of this attack. We do this with the other.
Інструментом для того, щоб
We believe that tabletop exercises are a useful tool to use in the intersectorial periodical trainings for the opportunity to evaluate the cyber accident for military and law enforcement institutions. And the conclusions we can make in our public-private partnership in terms of countering and combating cybercrime. First of all, such partnership could be useful in such directions as the services of to the project office on the implementation and realization of projects on cybersecurity and the increase of the competencies of the personnel and the increase of the capacity of state institutions, the education, the studying and joint testing of leading technological solutions for the investigations and digital criminalistic expertise or forensic expertises, joint use of cyber fields for testing of cyber incidents, the tabletop exercises, the exchange of indicators of cyber threats, and cyber audit of IT infrastructure to limit the possibilities of cybercrime, and the joint work on regulations, which has been mentioned today by the Deputy Minister of Interior Affairs and other speakers, because the regulations and regulatory framework is the field where there are limitations for the state to combat the cyber crimes which works out of this field. So this is the topic for this work. One more interesting approach for this work is the criminal algorithms. It requires to be studied because, well, when criminals create algorithms, it's out of the legal field, so we don't know how to qualify the crimes done by algorithms. So I offer this topic for the next workshop for us to meet and discuss it. Thank you for your attention.
The standpoint and the vision of the academia, from the point of the cyber academia Ukrainian. And maybe we have some questions for our speaker. Yes, please.
Ви казали, є декілька видань.
Yes, you said there are a few issues of C-book. What is the best one for the people who investigate cyber crimes? I can give you the C-book I have to look, but this is the first edition, but there is also the third edition. We will help you to consult with our expert, who is the expert of C-book, and we welcome you to use C-book and together create the courses of investigation. Thank you. Maybe there are more questions to our speaker. Thank you so much.
Last but not the least speaker we had today, and for the closure I would just want to have 3 points to talk about. The first one is please keep your name tags, because they will be keep them, take them with yourself, for they will be the pass for you to entry tomorrow at the same place, so keep them with yourself. Залишайте при собі картки з вашим ім'ям, тому що вони будуть вашими перепустками завтра до цього форуму. The second one is for international guests who have flights and departure after today's venue. Please take your luggage and your bags with you to the forum, to this event, because we will not go back to the hotels who have the flights immediately after the venue. And the third one, it was the official closure of the official part of the first day, and at 7 p.m. at 19:00 we will have the celebratory dinner where we have friendly cooperation, and also we'll talk and discuss issues we have. So please hope to see all of the participants in the Hotel Rus, Premier Hotel Rus, and join the celebratory dinner. Thank you very much, and see you at Hotel Rus.